Another championship weekend has been concluded, and wow, we've had a lot of crazy results going on this weekend. We've had 2 games with 7 goals within them. We've had some unbelievable individual performances. We've seen some very important results from the top and the bottom end of the table. We've seen some absolutely brilliant goals as well. We've seen some absolutely comedic goals as well, which will all be discussed in this video. I'm going to record this video in 2 segments. The first segment is going to be my reaction to the first 10 games of the championship, obviously from Millwall and Luton all the way down to the late game between West Brom and Leeds. In the second segment, you're going to hear my reaction on Thursday's games, with Derby going against Barnsley and Swansea going against Charlton. So in that way, you're going to hear my reaction for all championship matches happening in New Year's Day. In terms of the shoutouts so far, as of the 2 remaining games left, none of you have got a shout out yet, but I'm hoping when I've called my second segment, one of you may have a shout out, so maybe we'll see if that's the case. And I've not got a score prediction right either, although as with all of you, I'm hoping I'll get one right as well, so we'll just have to wait and see. It's a very big time championship season. The transfer window has opened. A lot of movement could be happening between all championship clubs. We've also got the FA Cup going on in a couple of days time, which I'll be going through very, very soon. But as always, if you like what you see, you want to see more championship content, if you want to see me review my predictions for the FA Cup as well with all championship sides, please make sure you do give a video a like. It is fantastically appreciated for me. Make sure you share the channel to as many championship football fans as you can, or as any football fans in general. That would be fantastic. And to subscribe if you haven't, or if you're new around here. All of that will really make my day. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter is in the description down below. You can follow me and you can ask me anything on football on the go. So yeah, if you want to follow me on anywhere or any social media, my Twitter is in the description down below. Go ahead and follow if you want. Without any further ado, let's go through for what we saw on New Year's Day for the championship. So the early game between Millwall and Luton ended with a 3-1 home victory for the home side Millwall. They started off very, very well, Millwall. I thought they were really putting Luton under some serious pressure, looping a few balls in, but Luton were proving to be a little bit organised in the back. Luton then started to grow into the game. They started to use their legs a little bit more. Players like Sheehan were proving to be a real handful for Millwall. And eventually, we had the first goal, but it went to the away side, who don't score many away from home, Luton, but they did. Sheehan delivered a fantastic looping free kick, and Solly Bradley managed to score his second goal of the season with a simple header. It was disappointing on Millwall's part. I thought they were going to defend him, but he was left with a lot of space. And Bill Caskey was just kind of plastered on his line. He didn't really move to get it, and that made it 1-0 Luton at half-time. Gary Rowett, I think, had the right response though. He substituted Tom Bradshaw on just before half-time because he knew that this just was not a great performance from Millwall. He also changed the formation to a 4-4-2 from a 3-4-3 that he started with, and it worked to tremendous effect. Millwall should have even scored before they actually equalised. Matt Smith was proving to be a defensive hero for Luton because he was crashing into the goal, but his body was in the way from the ball entering the net. It was an extraordinary moment between him and Hutchinson. How the ball didn't go in, I'm still surprised about it. But eventually they did equalise, and Matt Smith was involved with it. Jed Wallace with a fantastic cross headed from Matt Smith, and then Bradshaw managed to nod it home, and that made it 1-1. But 2-1, it was something very, very special from Colin Mahoney, managing to get a lot of confidence, great dribbling, and a lot of confidence to wither through the Luton defence. Shot from just inside the penalty box past O'Shea, and that made it 2-1. It was a fantastically taken goal. And the third goal was from Matt Smith, a fantastic pass from Mahoney, who proved once again to be involved with the goal. And then Matt Smith got above everyone and nodded it past O'Shea, and that made it 3-1. I'd say Luton did try a few things to try and contain Millwall, but as soon as Millwall scored their equaliser at the Den, they knew they had the crowd going ahead, the momentum behind them, and Luton just simply couldn't deal with it. But I think it is that experience in this level that really got Millwall to be back in this game. Luton have now slipped down to 24th following this defeat, which I have predicted in my mid-season predictions. I anticipate that despite Luton looking good at certain spells, they cannot sustain that throughout a whole 90 minutes, which is why I've not been given a lot of confidence in them. But with Millwall, this win now sees them lift themselves into the playoffs following other results going their way. So what an unbelievable turnaround Millwall have had since Gary Rowett's coming in. From when I predicted them to be relegated at the start of the season and they're in this position, it makes me look like a moron. But in retrospect, it reflects for what a fantastic job Gary Rowett has done with Millwall. For a squad of that quality to be in the position that they are is just absolutely extraordinary. And then we had another very entertaining game go round at St Andrews. Not quite 9 goals, but we had 5 in this one. And it was Wigan that picked up their first away victory of the entire season with a 3-2 away victory. And it was a game where it just kind of really sparked to life when the second half came round. Josh Windass managed to put Wigan ahead following a fantastic pass by Joe Williams. Had a lot of composure to slot it past Truman, but Mbati managed to get Birmingham back into it. A fantastic long distance pass from Pedersen, and Mbati did very well to weave through the Wigan defence and to slot it past Jones. The next goal was going to be a very important goal, and in unfortunate circumstances in terms of Gary Gardner, it came to Wigan. And I would question Truman's decision to leave his goal line to try and get the ball from Windass. He won the ball from him, and from the angle that he shot at, it came off Gary Gardner and hit the crossbar and went through to the net, and that made it 2-1 to Wigan. And Wigan, more importantly, managed to keep their nerve and keep the lead and even extend it by a 2-goal margin. It was following a corner, and then Cyprian managed to get a touch on the ball and to force it from the line after Birmingham failed to clear it. And that made it 3-1, and I thought Wigan were really comfortable. There was a little bit of a mishap from Jones as well after he could not get the ball from Magoma. He managed to nod the ball in the net, and that made it 3-2. So overall, Birmingham were just unlucky in this game. I think it is a poor run of form that they were in. They've only had 1 win in their last 12 games now. And there was unfortunate circumstances how they conceded as well, with Bellingham and Gardner managing to clash together in trying to make a tackle, and that really assisted Wigan to go ahead in the game. But it's a fantastic win by Wigan, and I think they really needed this win after Stoke managed to also win this weekend. And the fact that Luton didn't win either, they could start trying to bridge a gap between them. And if they keep this form going, then maybe Wigan could actually go places. I mean, Wigan have only had 1 defeat in their last 6, which was against Nottingham Forest. And to be honest, they were the better side for most of that game as well. So what they're doing now is exactly right. They just need to keep these positive performances. And if they do, they'll eventually get rewarded with a win. And they did. And their first time they've been rewarded away from home with a fantastic win against Birmingham. They need to keep those performances and not to slow down and to be on a rocky patch of form. If they keep this up, I say Wigan will have a chance. With Birmingham, I'd say that they are slowly but surely creeping into the relegation battle. This poor run that I said with having only 1 win in 12 is absolutely appalling, and Pep Clotet needs to fix something. And it'd be a travesty, I'd say, if this squad were to go down, because I think it's a really talented squad, a very young squad as well, and I'd say a really good squad in terms of its quality, especially with the youth as well. It shouldn't be in this position for me, and I believe he can do it, but I think for next season, I think Birmingham are going to need a new approach for me. They're just proving to be a too inconsistent side to make a challenge for playoffs. And how about this for a game? Brentford have managed to walk away with a really convincing away victory, a 4-0 away victory against Bristol City. I will say the game was ultimately determined about Ashley Williams being sent off very early on in the 13th minute. Although Bristol City did already concede before Williams got sent off, what I could describe, Hunt really had a nightmare. He had a terrible touch which allowed Mbumio to have a lot of joy, and he still failed to clear, and Mbumio had the simplest of tasks of managing to scoop it past Bentley. And then the red card happened. For me, a definite red. The reason I think it's a red is because of the rotation of the leg. If he just stuck his leg out, I would say it would have been a bit harsh, but the fact he swung his leg to try and take him down as well, it would have been more aggressive. So I do agree that the red card was the right decision. But then Said Benrahma managed to score Brentford second. A bit of a nightmare with Bentley, how he managed to concede it. Jensen had a lot of joy just outside the penalty box. really keeping the ball and actually being really confident with read through Bristol City players. Shot from distance, went straight at Bentley, but he parried it straight to Ben Rama, who had the simplest of tasks of managing to shoot through to an empty net. That made it 2-0 to Brentford. What's disappointing about Bristol City is that they didn't really craft any clear-cut chances to really test Brentford and Raya. And then the Brentford pressure just continued. Bentley made a very smart save from Ethan Pinnock after he headed a very inviting cross from side Ben Rama from a corner. But in the final 10 minutes of the game, the floodgates opened once again. This time for Ollie Watkins, who managed to score Brentford's third. A fantastic play and build-up leading up to the goal with a fantastic assist from Zambarek with a very good pass, and Watkins managed to tap it in. And then for the fourth goal, Watkins had a chance, had a header saved by Bentley, but no one closed him down, and Watkins made that 4-0. With Bristol City, they've already lost from their fantastic win against Luton Town, but this was a complete night and day performance, what we saw a couple of days ago. And you've got to question maybe if Johnson will be the right man to take Bristol City forward. I'd say the best thing to do to save for money-wise is to keep Johnson to the end of the season. But then, as a board, they'll need to make a decision whether he'll be right and he has the right vision to take Bristol City forward. I mean, I'd be a little bit surprised if I see Bristol City in the playoffs now, following that they are proving to be quite inconsistent. One of the things I was really excited with Bristol City this season was their defence, and to be honest with you, some of the defenders on their own, just having them there in the squad is just not going to fix anything. But nothing backing away from Brentford, they were absolutely terrific, and I'd say they will be one of the favourites to get promoted now, following Sheffield Wednesday's poor form and the fact inconsistent form from all of the playoff sides, to be honest with you. Brentford have been the one team for me that have shown a little bit more consistency despite losing last game. I think Brentford will be the favourites to try and catch the top two. And speaking of playoff sides dropping points and losing inconsistency, that leads us to Fulham. They lost 2-1 to Mark Bowen's Reading. Them themselves are in a fantastic run of form right now, and I don't know how they found their momentum back, but all of a sudden Reading are now playing with confidence again. They're playing with the full potential I saw from very early on in Mark Bowen's reign. You'd probably think that Fulham should have scored first, but Rafael Cabral made probably one of the best double saves that I have seen, denying Mitrovic, denying Knockhart, denying Kamara, all those players just like piling forward, and Fulham just could not find a way past Cabral. He was refusing to be beaten in the first half, and almost out of nothing, Reading went ahead. Some fantastic play by Ajaria, and managed to find Tyler Blackett in the left of the penalty box, laid off a pass to John Swift, and he managed to score from a deflection, and that made it 1-0. And it was almost out of nothing, but Reading in a way really took their chances and was so clinical. But Ajaria once again for the second goal. What a player he has been in the Championship this season. Honestly, the confidence he had to get past Reed and to be a magician on the ball as well, and the control was absolutely staggering. Fulham players just did not know what was going on. Ajaria was running his way around the defence. He managed to square it off to Charlie Adam, who's had another terrific game and has managed to smash it in the top of the net to make it 2-0 Reading. I was a little bit confused to why Ivan Cavallero didn't start in this game. He was brought on in the 56th minute, and as soon as Cavallero went on, he made a huge difference to the game, and he was the one that got Fulham's first goal and only goal of the game. Some fantastic play from Knockhart to pick out a really good pass and a good amount of space for Cavallero. He managed to shoot it just outside the box and shoot it right in the right hand side of the corner to make it 2-1. Cavallero also tried to equalise. He also tried to score from distance, but it came off the post. And Mitrovic could have scored an equaliser for Fulham as well, but his header was really well saved by Cabral. I think Fulham just looked a little bit rough of ideas. They did not really want to attack Reading from in the box, but Reading were very, very compact. They really did not allow Fulham to play their free-flowing style of football. They really closed them down. They intercepted their passing, and the individual quality from their midfield really invited a lot of opportunities for their attack. The likes of Lucas Jowl was busy, Charlie Adam was busy as well, Ejaria, Swift, all those players were really energised. They really offered, I think, a big surprise for Fulham. I don't think they really expected it, and Fulham do need to expect a really tough game from all Championship opponents if they want to try and get promoted. But going back to Reading, an unbelievable performance, 2 fantastic away performances from 2 promotion envy sides, and I'd say I think the only way is up for Reading for me, and if they were to get in the playoffs in this position now, it'd be quite difficult, but if they keep this form going for a good month or maybe even 2 months, Reading could have a potential chance if they keep this form going. And I say they will need to keep a good finish, and especially having the quality of Ejaria, having him for a loan, I think really has made a difference, and it's such a joy to see him. No doubt he'll definitely get a Premier League club next year. And we had an absolute bonkers game go around in the John Smith Stadium with Huddersfield 2, Stoke City 5. A lot went on in this game. I'll try and piece together what I managed to see. Stoke managed to go ahead at first. A really poor mistake by Danny Simpson trying to control the ball. He lost out to it completely. Nick Powell managed to nick it from them and managed to square it to Sam Vokes, who managed to score past Grabara, and that was the only goal in that half leading to half time. Stoke could have even gone further ahead. Tyrese Campbell was very unlucky with him hitting the woodwork just before half time. But Huddersfield scored 2 quick fire goals. First coming from Steve Mounier from a corner. Colin Grant managed to deliver it and he managed to head the ball home past Butland. And then 2 minutes later, once again, Huddersfield managed to go ahead from a delivery. Butland tried to parry it away, but then his punch managed to get off from Danny Bath, and the ball only just trickled past the line to make it 2-1 to Huddersfield. And I thought it was a terrific response in the start of the second half by Huddersfield. They were really putting Stoke under pressure again. But then Stoke, almost 5 minutes later, managed to get a terrific response and equalised. Joe Allen did very well in the midfield to win the ball back, and that set off a really fast play and a fast break by Stoke. Tyrese Campbell was in the right side of the penalty box, managed to square it to Nick Powell, who did a great shot, just about skimming off the post but going in the goal. And it was a great response from Stoke, and that ultimately continued. Now, for Stoke's third goal, Grabara will be very disappointed how that managed to go in. A free kick was laid in by Stoke. He tried to punch the ball away, which he did manage to get contact to, but Tyrese Campbell, completely unmarked to the edge of the box, had a terrific touch to keep the control and to simply loop the ball over Grabara to catch him off this line, and that put Stoke ahead. And that for me was the turning point, with Grabara making I think a very silly decision not trusting his defenders to try and clear the ball. He punched it only to punch it straight at Tyrese Campbell, who did terrifically well to score, by the way, but it was a really silly mistake from him. And then for Stoke's fourth, Sam Klukas managed to lay off a fantastic looping pass. The defending in that situation, it was really bad in Huddersfield's part. Nick Powell managed to win it, and then Tyrese Campbell once again managed to shoot the ball into the corner past Grabara. That made it 4-2 Stoke. Probably the biggest talking point in the whole game was at that situation when James McLean was taking a free kick. An announcement was made that there was discriminatory chanting, and that's completely disappointing. Even in the Championship, we hear reports of this happening all the time in the Premier League, but even at Championship or anywhere, it's completely unacceptable, and it just completely took away Stoke's fantastic performance and their win. I know James McLean has had some really big views in terms of his beliefs, but that doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter, and it's absolutely embarrassing for me. But what a terrific response from him. He provided an assist for Stoke's final goal from the free kick, and very quickly taken free kick. It was very cleverly taken, and it was scored by Lee Gregory, who's been a very quiet player for Stoke, but I'm glad for him that he scored his goal, and that made it 5-2. With Huddersfield, at times they looked okay. I thought Grant, however, was kept very quiet in this game, and their biggest downfall was their defending. I mean, 3 of Stoke's goals, I think, could have been heavily avoided if they had better defending and better decisions in terms of trying to clear the ball. It's those tiny margins, as I say, that can make a huge difference in the game. Huddersfield have been in a topsy-turvy run of form as of late. If they're not careful, they could be back into the relegation battle following the fantastic form of Reading and Middlesbrough. I think Reading do need to try and mirror that run of form to try and pull themselves away. Otherwise, if they're not careful, they can be in a precarious position. But it's a fantastic win for Stoke. They are outside of the relegation zone as it stands. I said that I didn't see anything in them that will keep them up. But if they continue this, yes, they were quite poor to concede 2 goals in the way that they did, especially the second goal. But from what I'm seeing in an attacking perspective, and in terms of their desire, as I said, with Joe Allen managing to win the ball back to lead up with Stoke's equaliser, and if this desire and if this fighting to stay alive continues with Stoke City, I can see them being okay. And it's a great win, a very entertaining game for the neutral, but marred by complete embarrassment in terms of the chanting, and there's no place for it in football, there's no place for it anywhere. Then we had Nottingham Forest continuing their great form with a fantastic 3-2 away victory over Blackburn Rovers, which then themselves were in a terrific run of form as well. Nottingham Forest took the game by the scruff of the neck. They went ahead through a fantastic assist with Matty Cash, and throughout the whole game, he was influential on delivering long deliveries and putting a load of Nottingham Forest players into some fantastic positions, and it really did caught the Blackburn defence out a couple of times. But he made a fantastic pass to Joan Lolly, who looked like he tried to cross the ball, but somehow it managed to get past Walton and go through the net. Whether he meant to score that, we will never know unless we actually ask him in person. But it was a terrific goal regardless, and that put Forest ahead. Then Cash with another fantastic pass to Lolly once again, who was through on goal, but Walton brought him down, and then Nottingham Forest got a penalty. Lewis Graben scored it from the left side. Walton, I think, did get a hand to it, but couldn't quite keep it out. That made it 2-0 Forest. However, Blackburn did respond, with Armstrong being on the right side of the penalty box, managing to square it to Stuart Downing, who smashed it in the top corner. And it was a tactical change, I think, for Downing to be brought further up forward as well, but it looked like it would be in really good effect. That made it 2-1. However, the game was over on the 55th minute when Sammy Amiori picked a fantastic looping pass to Lewis Graben, who managed to simply head the ball home, and that made it by 3-1. Blackburn did not give up though, following a very quick free kick situation. I think it caught Nottingham Forest off guard a little bit. The ball was squared, but then Joe Worrell tried to slide in and clear it, managed to put it in his own net, and that made it 3-2. There are other chances that Blackburn could have gone ahead. Evans had a chance which was well saved by Breesamba, but overall I say Nottingham Forest did just about enough over Blackburn to win. With Blackburn, they've slid down to 13th now, with not winning in their last 4 games now. And following their fantastic start that they had leading up to December to January time, they need to try and find that form again if they were to try and climb up the table again, because I'd say they still have a chance for trying to get into the playoffs, but they need to be more consistent. But with Nottingham Forest, those 3 wins in a row really put Nottingham Forest in a very healthy position, and following that, Fulham lost, Sheffield Wednesday lost, Preston lost. Nottingham Forest really needed this win now more than any other time, and the fact that they've got it, that's really put them in a fantastic position. Speaking of Preston losing, they did exactly that against Middlesbrough. They lost by 2-0 at Deepdale. What has happened to Preston? Before this festive period, they've only lost 1 home game. Now they've lost 2 home games in a row. And it's something that Alex Neil needs to find as soon as he can if Preston won't have any chance of being in the playoffs. They've already slipped down to 9th following their poor run of form recently. But it's continuing Middlesbrough's fantastic form, who look like just a completely different team at the moment. And in terms of creativity, spirit and gaining chances, Middlesbrough have completely changed. They looked the more threatening to get the first goal as well. Preston really didn't have a single opportunity in that first half at all. Middlesbrough had a free kick which was delivered by Paddy McNair, who was substituted on from Daniel Ayala. He managed to loop in a great free kick. It was met by Saville and Preston couldn't clear it, and instead with an overhead kick volley managed to send it past Rudd. It was a great bit of improvisation for him to get the ball into the net, and the away fans went absolutely wild. They knew that they found something special, and Preston just looked completely flat. They did not really get into the game. I'd say this was an even worse performance from when they played Reading a few days ago at Deepdale. The big opportunity, I guess, Paul Gallagher had a shot from quite far out which whistled wide of the post. David Nugent, I think, also had a header which was just wide of the post as well. But Middlesbrough, once again, created so many chances, and if it wasn't for Declan Rudd, they could have even conceded more. Their second goal, though, was a complete defensive mishap. Once again, a little bit similar to Hunt, but this time being an even worse situation by Davies. An awful touch inviting Ashley Fletcher to go on through, but he panicked and he managed to kick the ball into his own net past Rudd's reach, and that made it 2-0 to Middlesbrough. Paddy McNair, Gusted, both had chances to score. Ashley Fletcher could have scored as well. Both chances were saved by Declan Rudd respectively. And Middlesbrough were just completely playing Preston like a fiddle. They were completely dragging them to the left and dragging them to the right. They were delivering so many set pieces, and Preston looked very vulnerable. Preston are definitely not themselves at the moment. They need to sort out this slump of their form so far. They've dropped down to 9th following victories and perform results elsewhere. They need to recover as soon as they can if they want any chance of being promoted. If they don't reach the playoffs following the unbelievable start they had, I could not help but feel really disappointed. But with Middlesbrough, who knows where they could finish, honestly. They are on absolute fire. They can win at home, and it looks like they can win away from home as well. But it looks like they've cracked a style of play that really suits them to beat anyone. And maybe my prediction of predicting Middlesbrough to finish 7th place may not look as bad as it did a couple of weeks ago, let me tell you. And then we have, what I can say, a tremendous game going on at the Kieran Prince Stadium. Queen's Park Rangers 6, Cardiff City 1. What on earth has happened to Cardiff? They're a completely different side to what they were when they beat Sheffield Wednesday. Queen's Park Rangers simply refused to lose this game. They were going to be ruthless, and they did not give Cardiff a single chance to get into this game. It started immediately 9 minutes in with a fantastic pass by Eze meeting the head of Naki Wells. A bit disappointing defensively on Bamba's part. He didn't really close him down there. I was praising Bamba for how good he was against Sheffield Wednesday, but in this game, he was not having the best game at all. Bright Samuel managed to make it 2-0. It was a fantastic assist by Naki Wells again, who just simply chipped it over the defence, and Bright Samuel controlled it and slammed it past Etheridge. He had a really horrible game in goal as well. But then probably one of the goals of the weekend, Bright Samuel, with a fantastic individual effort, managed to dribble through the Cardiff defence, did a great crossover, managing to slip over Nelson. I think he's still on the floor right now. It was that filthy. Finished the job and scored it past Etheridge. After halftime, Neil Harris unsurprisingly brought on a double substitution. He was not happy for what he was seeing. Unfortunately, it didn't improve at all, with immediately in the second half, Naki Wells managing to score again, with Eze making the assist. He didn't intend to make the assist. He completely miskicked the ball, but it somehow still rose to the perfect height for Wells to manage to get the ball home to make it 4-0. Eberechi Eze eventually scored his goal, with Elias Chair doing fantastically well to provide him with the assist, Simple squaring it off and Eze finishing it off. And then Naki Wells made it 6-0 with a really poor mistake by Aidan Flint at the back. Terrible back pass, if I'm going to be honest with you. Completely met with Wells, and he had the simplest of tasks for scoring at an empty net to make it 6-0. Cardiff did have something to cheer about, with Will Volks managing to score a fantastic effort from outside the box in the 91st minute. But that was pretty much the only time Cardiff had any joy in terms of goal. I mean, I know Aidan Flint hit the post as well, but apart from that, Cardiff were really poor, really flat, and it'll be very interesting for me to see how Neil Harris approaches his team after this game, because it was an embarrassing performance. To think that this side were in the Premier League and being as defensively careless as they were against Queen's Park Rangers was really, really poor. But in terms of Queen's Park Rangers, this is probably the victory that they needed for. Recently, I think they've been really frustrated. They've been playing well but not be getting the results. They played well again, and this time they more than deserved the result that they were getting. So maybe this could be a really good opportunity and a really good time for Queen's Park Rangers to try and climb back up the table again, because they have slipped down a little bit. But right now, I think if they play like this most weeks, I think Queen's Park Rangers will finish in a pretty good position. And then Hull managed to win back-to-back games by beating Sheffield Wednesday by 1-0. It was a game that didn't have many goals, although to be fair, it did have quite a few opportunities, I'd say. In the first half, I'd say Hull had a really good opportunity, with Pennington basically being free from a corner and simply had to chest it in for 2 yards in, but somehow he chested it wide of the post. It was an unbelievable, a gaping miss for Hull City in that moment, and I thought at that moment they could have been punished. Sheffield Wednesday did have a few chances. Winnall was involved in a few chances, but unfortunately for him, he couldn't score past long and goal. And I think with Sheffield Wednesday, they've just been missing Fletcher, just a real striker's instinct, a real clinical nature about him. Nuhu did try and get involved as well. He did have a few opportunities crafted as well, but it was well defended and well dealt with by George Long in goal. Hull did have more chances of their own. Irvine had a few chances. Honeymoon had a good chance, but Dawson made a good save for it. The goal eventually came round with Jared Bowen, of course, who else scored it with a fantastic assist by George Honeyman. He managed to keep the ball for quite some time and managed to dribble across the side of the box and squares it brilliantly to Bowen to simply smash through past Dawson, and that was the difference of the game. Just a little bit of clinical instinct has really given Hull the edge in this game. Sheffield Wednesday, I don't think were awful. They did create quite a few chances in that game, and they did keep Hull busy quite a lot of the time. But the thing is, I think they just were not clinical, and I go back to that they think they're missing Fletcher. I really think they are, and as soon as they can get Fletcher back, I don't think Sheffield Wednesday are going to feel the same attacking wise. Bannon was heavily involved, but unfortunately, with his good deliveries, no one in the final third could really make the most of it. And overall, it was a very, very flat and disappointing performance by Sheffield Wednesday. But with Hull, it's a fantastic victory. They're currently 8th in the table following their pretty strong run of form. Who knows where Hull could go with that squad of that standard? They could be going places. They really can. It just depends how consistent they are. Then the final game I'm going to talk about in this sitting is West Brom 1, Leeds 1. I think it was the fairest result in the end. I'd say it was a game of two halves. I say West Brom did pretty well in the first half. I think they bossed it in terms of the first half. Sami Ajay actually managed to score on both sides of the goal. The corner was delivered by Pereira. Helder Costa tried to clear it, but unfortunately it stayed within West Brom's possession, and Ajay managed to get a little bit of a touch on the ball, and Jack Harrison we thought managed to be heroic and managed to do a goal line clearance, but unfortunately for him, the ball just about crossed the whole of the line and the goal was given. But from that moment onwards, I'd say Leeds did very, very well to contain West Brom, and Kiko Casilla really stepped up in this game. He was very important. A lot of West Brom's attacking players were really knocking at the door trying to get something out from this game, but Kiko Casilla was simply having none of it. But despite the good free kick chance from Phillips and a fantastic one-on-one effort from Phillips, which he unfortunately couldn't capitalise, Leeds managed to score very quickly in the second half following a very quick throw. Delivery met Bamford, who claimed it was his goal, but his header came off Ajay, and that was how Ajay scored in the wrong side of the net, and that made it 1-1. Whilst Leeds had a few opportunities, they didn't really make any clear-cut chances, with West Brom probably coming the closest to winning it. Carl Edwards having a great opportunity within the penalty spot, but Kiko Casilla managed to save that as well. The draw was a deserved result for me. I think Bielsa made the right decision to bring in Nketiah off and bring Bamford on. His response was ultimately what forced Leeds to crack a goal through. It's going to be interesting for me how Leeds recover without Nketiah. People could say that he probably did not deliver for Leeds, but for me, I think he was in an unfortunate situation when you've got someone like Bamford, who's a hot and cold striker himself, and when you've got a team like Leeds that have to be perfect, they really do, if they want to try and keep into the promotion races, there's very marginal room for error, and you can't take a load of risks in terms of your team selection. And Nketiah didn't start many games, so I couldn't really tell you whether he delivered or not. He did have a few opportunities. I think back to Barnsley, where he managed to get the winner there. I think back to the Carabao Cup game where he had a masterclass against Salford City. So there were opportunities with Nketiah that he did manage to deliver for Leeds. Unfortunately, it probably wasn't as big as it was going to be, but I think Nketiah has led Leeds in a good position when I think about it, with some of the last minute goals he did score. Leeds would not be in a stronger position than they are right now. So I think he has left a pretty good effect to it, but it'll be interesting to see how Leeds cope without his presence. With West Brom, it was a much improved home performance compared to Middlesbrough. They really forced Leeds under a lot of chances, even though possession-wise they were completely outplayed. But in terms of opportunities, they really put Leeds under pressure more pressure than I've ever seen Leeds under. They'll definitely be a favourite to get promoted. What they cannot afford, and that's the same with Leeds, is to drop their form. If they can keep their form going, I say they will both be the favourites to get promoted. And this is the second segment of the video. I don't like how long this video is already, so I'm going to be very brief in my analysis with the last two games. I've literally just watched them. First, let's talk about Derby 2, Barnsley 1. It was a game where I did expect Wayne Rooney to start, hearing how eager he was to start. He was captaining the side as well, which actually kind of threw me off guard a little bit, but he did do that. And I will say, I think despite not playing a league game since October, he looked really fresh out of the park. To me, I don't think he's going to be the role of a goal scorer. I think he's going to be the role of a provider. The amount of long deliveries, long passing, and some of the passing he was doing was absolutely sublime. Some of the passes he was picking out, there was one moment where he was just outside the halfway line, picked out a brilliant pass to Jason Knight for him to have a really good opportunity. Unfortunately, he can't make everyone else play better, but everyone needs to live off Wayne Rooney giving them so many chances. And he did assist the first goal scored by Jack Marriott. Brilliant pass from him, and Jack Marriott did very well to finish the job and make it 1-0. Barnsley, I thought, were a little bit hot and cold in this game. I think in the second half especially, Barnsley got into it and actually competed more. Ben Hamer had a complete nightmare in Derby's goal with the goal that they scored though. But Elliot Simons wouldn't care. He made it 1-1. And I thought this was actually quite a tight game. But then a couple of minutes later, Waghorn struck the ball very, very well. And that got what got them to win 2-1. It wasn't a convincing performance by Derby. I could see further weaknesses there. Barnsley did compete for quite a fair bit and did put Derby quite under a lot of pressure near the end of the game. However, Derby did well to hold out their shape. Wayne Rooney, I thought, was terrific. I think we've just seen a little bit of a teaser for what he can offer us in the Championship. I'm really excited to see how he develops in this game. Derby are 17th, but have developed a 4-point gap from Birmingham and a 9-point gap from the relegation zone. I think all teams descending from Birmingham are still in a little bit of danger from relegation, in my opinion. And one of those teams is Charlton, who managed to lose away from home against Swansea. Danda managed to get the goal with a brilliant strike from just outside the penalty box, right in the left side of the net. Phillips couldn't stretch and keep it out. Phillips was a really important person on the pitch for Charlton. He did keep a lot of saves, and Charlton didn't really have many chances at all in this game. They didn't really trouble Swansea all too much. Byers also hit the woodwork, so Swansea could have extended their lead. And apart from the end, when Davison had a chance from just outside the penalty box, which Woodman sort of spilled, but somehow he kept to it, Charlton didn't really trouble Swansea that much. It was not an encouraging performance for Charlton. With Swansea, Andre Ayew really run the show. He was completely fearless, and Charlton players were genuinely scared of him. They really couldn't contain his energy, the way he kind of switched up the play. He was really instrumental in terms of Swansea's tempo. But this win for Swansea puts them in the playoffs momentarily, and I think they'll be very, very happy with that. So since this is going to be uploaded today on the Friday, I'm going to give you my FA Cup predictions. This is round 3, by the way, and to every Championship club. So we'll start with Bristol City versus Shrewsbury. Bristol City not a great run of form. Shrewsbury in and around mid-table-ish in League One. I'm going to say Bristol City win by 2-0. Millwall Newport. Newport tend to do quite well in these cup competitions though. But Millwall did very well in the last cup competition, making it to the quarter-final, losing out to Brighton. I'm going to say 2-1 Millwall. Rotherham and Hull. Rotherham doing quite well in League One at the moment. Recently now in the top 2, finding a little bit of consistency under Paul Warne. Hull obviously doing quite well under Grant McCann. I'm going to say that Hull get a 2-1 away victory. I think it's going to be really tight. Birmingham and Blackburn is the All Championship tie. The last tie that was actually drawn in the live draw. I'm going to say that this will be a 2-1 home victory to Birmingham. I think they're going to recover their form in terms of a cup competition. I think they need a response from their poor form recently. Southampton versus Huddersfield is interesting. Huddersfield playing against Southampton recently, last year, even in the Premier League. But I think Southampton, with their form recently, they have seemed to turn a corner under Hasenhüttl. I'm going to say that Southampton win by 1-0. I don't think there'll be many goals in that game. Cardiff versus Carlisle. Cardiff obviously had their terrible defeat. Carlisle not doing well in League 2 at all, and they tend to be up there in League 2, but they're not doing that well this year. Really struggled away from home as well, which is not a good omen for them in this game. I'm going to say Cardiff will win by 3-0. Brighton versus Sheffield Wednesday, I think is a really good matchup actually. It'll be a good test for Sheffield Wednesday to see if they can play Premier League opposition. Obviously, Gary Monk would have played against Graham Potter before, with him being at Swansea last year, so we might know sort of the playing style he likes to play. I think despite that, I think this will be going to a replay. I think this will be a 1-1 draw. We have Fulham versus Aston Villa, obviously a rerun of the playoff final 2 years ago, where Fulham narrowly got through with Tom Cairney scoring the only goal in the game. Aston Villa, I think, have taken cup competitions very seriously. They've made it to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, where they've got to play Leicester. In the FA Cup, they've not had a good round recently. Last year, they got knocked out by Peterborough at Villa Park, but they had other priorities of trying to maintain a really tough championship season. This season, the Premier League, they're just above the relegation zone, so they may set their priorities in staying up, but for me, I think they'll take this competition seriously. Fulham, I think, could pose a really big threat. I'm going to say this will be a 2-1 home victory to Fulham. I think they genuinely have a chance against Villa. Reading versus Blackpool. Reading doing pretty well now in the Championship. Blackpool started off very well under Simon Grayson, tailed off a little bit, but they're still in or around just outside the playoff places. I'm going to say Reading will win by 2-0. Preston versus Norwich. This could be a very feisty game, with Alex Neil returning to his old club Norwich, who he did quite well in the Premier League, but unfortunately he could not keep Norwich up in their previous Premier League season. Obviously under Preston as well, having a very strong start but dropping recently. Daniel Farke will also know what Alex Neil is about as well, since they were in the Championship last year. I'm going to say that this is going to be a 2-1 away victory to Norwich. We've got Brentford versus Stoke, an all-Championship tie. I'm going to say 2-0 Brentford. I think with the form they're in, I think they'll really blow Stoke away, despite how good they were against Huddersfield. Bournemouth versus Luton, I think, will be very interesting. Both of these sides arguably punching above their weight in terms of their stadium capacity and their location and their finance. This will be really tight. I think Bournemouth recently have not been in a real good run of form in the Premier League, and in their cup competitions as well, they've been more or less disappointing. Luton made it to the 4th round last year, losing out to Sheffield Wednesday. And I remember that because the winner of that game would have played Chelsea in the 4th round. I'm going to say that this will be a 1-1 draw and going to a replay. Leicester versus Wigan. Oh dear me. Okay. Leicester, I think, will take this competition seriously. They've taken every game so seriously so far. It's seriously impressive what Leicester are doing. I predicted them to finish 9th in the Premier League. How wrong I am. And Wigan, they had a good away result, but they've only won away from home twice in 2 years. So I cannot back anything else than Leicester getting a 4-1 home victory, I think. I think they'll not take Wigan any mercy. Then to Sunday's games, you've got Chelsea going against Nottingham Forest. My boys Chelsea here. And we played against Nottingham Forest last year, dealt with them pretty comfortably by 2-0. This is different this year because Chelsea under Frank Lampard is going to be different. Lamucci as well is a completely new manager to Aitor Karanka, for who we were facing at the time. Nottingham Forest could get a result against Chelsea because they have had a good few results away from home. I'm going to say this is a 1-1 draw. Despite how patriotic I want to be to my club, but I'm also keeping in mind for what I've seen with Nottingham Forest, they could have a really terrible game and Chelsea could blow them away. But at the same time, Nottingham Forest could be really, really defensively organised, really make it difficult for Chelsea to break them down and to hit us on the counter-attack, because that's been a weakness from Chelsea. So for me, I think Nottingham Forest will even the scoring and there will be a 1-1 draw on that replay. Crewe versus Barnsley. Crewe doing very well in League 2 in the top 3 as it stands, one of the favourites to get promoted. Barnsley, obviously, we know where they are. They recently lost against Derby. Probably shouldn't have lost with the chance they had. I think a draw would have been the fairer result. I'm going to say, even though this has the potential to be an upset, I'm going to say that Barnsley win by 2-0, I think. Middlesbrough versus Spurs is a very good game. Jonathan Woodgate obviously facing his former team that he used to play as a player. I think that to Jonathan Woodgate being the only player managing to get Spurs a trophy in the last 12 years, because he scored the winner against Chelsea in that League Cup final to give them a bit of silverware. They've not had silverware for over a decade now. And no, I'm not counting the Audi Cup. I think Middlesbrough, in their run of form, they could give Spurs a really good fight. And I think on Jose Mourinho, who's been a bit hot and cold in terms of what he's got right with Spurs so far. I think Spurs will be quite comfortable though. I think they'll win by 3-1. I think Jose will get this game right. Queen's Park Rangers versus Swansea, an all-championship tie. I'm thinking Queen's Park Rangers will win by 2-1 being at home. Charlton versus West Brom, another all-championship tie. I'm going to say West Brom win by 3-1. And finally, saving the best to last, the one Monday game, Arsenal versus Leeds. Arsenal winning their first game in over 2.5 months with Mikel Arteta in charge. Very good performance against Manchester United, and I can't criticise them in any way because Chelsea just can't seem to beat Manchester United. They're playing against a Leeds side who had to make deals for to get Eddie Nketiah. I don't think he's going to be available in this game. I'll be very, very surprised if Arsenal consider trying to play Nketiah against his former club. He's going to be exhausted from all the football he's been playing. Leeds, I think, will take this game very seriously. It's with Marcelo Bielsa as well. He won't make it easy, I think. Arsenal may be the favourites. I'm tempted to say this will go to a replay, but in my head, I'm saying that I think Arsenal will win, but I think it'll be by 2-1. I think Leeds will offer a tougher challenge in terms of trying to play their possession type of football. It'll be very interesting to see how Arsenal respond to it. I don't think they'll play any differently how they are in the Championship. I think Arteta will be relatively calm and collected about this game, so I'm going to say 2-1 Arsenal. Now, obviously, all the Championship games have now been played. In terms of the score predictions, none of you have got a score prediction right, which is a real shame for me. I am honoured with the amount of people that have actually submitted their score predictions, but unfortunately there are no correct predictions. I've only got one prediction right, and that was the last game to have finished in this whole Championship weekend, which was the Swansea and Charlton game, which ended by 1-0. But that will wrap it up for this Championship video. Now let's talk about the goal of the weekend, the player of the weekend, and the result of the weekend. My result of the weekend has got to be QPR 6, Cardiff 1. An unbelievable performance by Queen's Park Rangers. Goal of the weekend's interesting. I'm going to say just from the sheer class and the amount of control, I'm going to give it to Bright Samuel for his second goal against Cardiff. It was absolutely genius. Just from the cheekiness alone, I'm going to give my goal of the weekend to Bright Samuel, second against Cardiff. Player of the weekend's a little bit difficult for me, but my player of the weekend has been a player that I've been wanting to give this award to, but I just haven't lately. For me, I think he deserves it. John Swift of Reading. He's been a player that I've kept, thinking whether should I give him the player of the weekend, but I've not really been giving him this award that often. But I think for what he managed to do against Fulham, how much he was involved in that midfield, how much he really brought the game to life. He scored a goal as well. For me, my player of the weekend is John Swift. But I'm willing to hear any other potential candidates for the player of the weekend because I found this award to be quite difficult. But I think that finally wraps it up for a Championship video. If you guys liked what you see, you want to see more Championship content from me, you want to see more football videos from me in the future, please make sure you do give the video a like. It is tremendously appreciated. Make sure to share the channel to as many Championship fans as you can and to as many football fans as you can. We've hit 80 subscribers now, which I'm actually really, really chuffed about. 100, I think, is going to be the target now. If we can get there, that'll be absolutely amazing. And also, please subscribe if you haven't already, or if you're new around here, all of that will be tremendously appreciated. But thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this very long video. But as always, we're starting off 2020 with a bang, and take care.